I'm going to talk today about 3 discoveries that were so important that they changed the world. Each of these discoveries is interesting because the scientists noticed something that looked unusual, then formed an idea called a hypothesis about why the unusual thing was happening, and finally collected information or did experiments to see if the hypothesis was true or false. I'm going to describe to you these 3 discoveries and talk about the people who made them. I will talk about where these people lived, about how they did their research, and about what happened when they found the answer. The 3 scientists are Marie Curie, Louis Pasteur, and Rachel Carson. Let's start with Marie Curie. Marie Curie was born in Poland. Her father and mother were teachers. She wanted to study at university, but the family could not afford it. Marie worked for a few years, then went to Paris and studied mathematics and physics at the university. At that time, a scientist called Henry Becquerel had just discovered that the mineral uranium gave off energy, and that this could be used to make X-ray photographs. Marie had noticed that the pitchblende, a mineral which contained uranium, gave off an electrical charge. She wanted to know why this happened. She formed a theory that the atoms inside the mineral were producing this energy. She believed the uranium was not the only element that did this. She wanted to find other minerals which did the same thing. Marie and her husband Pierre Curie began trying to find some samples of the new element. To do this, they had to crush and boil tons of pitchblende, because each ton contained only a tiny amount of the new element. After years of hard physical work, the Curies found 2 new elements. They called them polonium and radium. Both of these elements gave off energy, so the Curies used the word radioactive to describe them. Scientists believe that the Curies had discovered something that was as important as the discovery of oxygen. The Curies were given the first Nobel Prize for physics. Now radioactive minerals are used to treat cancer, to make electricity, and to calculate the age of things like prehistoric bones and tools. Our second scientist is Louis Pasteur. Pasteur lived in the north of France. He was a professor of chemistry at the university in Lille, a city where alcohol was manufactured. In 1856, a beer manufacturer asked Pasteur to find out why his beer often went sour and had to be thrown away after the sugar was added. Pasteur examined the beer and found microorganisms in it. At that time, people believed that after it went bad, bacteria began to grow in it. But Pasteur believed that the bacteria lived in the air and they caused the food to go bad. He studied milk, wine, and vinegar and found that if they were heated, they did not go bad because the bacteria in them were killed by the heat. Pasteur went on to say that microorganisms in the air do not just spoil food, they cause diseases as well. This idea was called germ theory. Pasteur discovered that he could prevent animals from getting diseases by injecting them with a mixture containing weakened forms of the bacteria that cause the disease. He called this mixture a vaccine, and the process was called vaccination. At first, people laughed at Pasteur and rejected his ideas. However, his discoveries and the vaccines developed by the Pasteur Institute have saved millions of lives. Pasteur is also remembered for the patient and careful way in which he did his experiments. He always controlled them very strictly and made sure that all the results were supported by evidence from experiments. Our third scientist is called Rachel Carson. Rachel was born in Pennsylvania. She grew up in a country town and developed a love for nature. She wanted to inspire people, especially children, to appreciate the natural world. She worked as a scientist and also wrote scientific articles and books. In 1957, Carson received a letter from a friend which described the effects of spraying of DDT. The pesticide had been sprayed over a patch of woodland area to control mosquitoes. And the next day there were dead birds lying on the ground. Carson decided to research the effects of DDT and other pesticides and to write a book about its effects on the environment. She spent 2 years researching and published Silent Spring in 1962. The book describes how pesticides poison living things and how these chemicals become stronger as they move up the food chain. Mice eat grain that contains DDT. After this, large birds such as eagles eat the mice, and then the birds die as a result of the DDT in their food. As well as explaining the dangers of pesticides, Carson shows how living things depend upon each other. She says that if humans try to control nature by killing unwanted species, such as mosquitoes, there will be consequences, such as the death of fish, which use the mosquitoes for food. Silent Spring is a very powerful book, as Carson used her skills as a scientist and a writer and wrote with great determination. Carson's book was rejected by the chemical industry. One company even tried to stop its publication. However, it was very popular, and it changed the way people thought about the environment. The Silent Spring was the beginning of the modern environmental movement. It led to the creation of government environmental policies and to more research on the effects of DDT. In 1972, DDT was banned in the United States.